In this video, we're going to show you to replace the steering rack boot on your Nissan Rogue, located here on your steering rack. You want to go ahead and remove your center cap. Go ahead and put your fingers underneath and gently tug outward. Pop those right off. It's going to give you access to the 521mm nuts. Go ahead, loosen and remove those. Once you have those off, grab the wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Using a 22mm wrench, we're going to go ahead and loosen this jam nut. With that jam nut loose, I'm going to go ahead and loosen and remove the nut on our tie rod end. Using a 17mm socket, go ahead and loosen this nut. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strike the knuckle with a hammer, and that should jar the tie rod end loose. Turn this tie rod end counterclockwise to unthread it off of the inner. You can see that the inner is spinning as well. You can use a 13mm wrench on the inside here, or you can use a pair of locking pliers. So I went ahead and heated this up to go ahead and loosen this. I'm going to continue to turn this off. Using a 22mm socket, remove the jam nut. Go ahead and remove your pliers, set those aside. Using a pair of pliers, remove the clamp on the end of the boot. Now on the inside of the boot here, there is a band. It's a one-time use band, and you're going to find a little loop on it like this here. I'm simply going to use a small pry tool. I'm going to go ahead, put it in there, and give it a few bonks with the hammer, and just knock that off. Go ahead and remove that band and get rid of it. Go ahead and grab that boot, give it a couple yanks, and pull it right off. Go ahead and take the boot, slide that in. And at this point here, I'm going to go ahead and slide the boot in on top of the rack. I'm going to go to the passenger side, turn the wheel, and it's going to pull the inner tie rod into the rack, and I'll be able to install that boot. You can go ahead, you can grab that boot, you can twist it left and right and work that onto the rack. Once that boot is fully seated, you want to go ahead and install the retainer band on the inner part of the boot. Go ahead and make the loop. I'm going to slide that in and over. I'm going to push it all the way back to the inside part of the boot. Once you have it in place, we can go ahead and tighten down that band. Once that band is tight, go ahead in with your cutters and snip off the excess. Install the outer clamp. Install a jam nut. Now when we removed our outer tie rod, we counted 18 revolutions to unthread it off of the inner tie rod. When we install a new one, we're going to go ahead and count 18 revolutions on to give us a preliminary setting for our alignment. It's 18 turns. I'm going to spin that right there. Now at this point here, we can't move our ball joint. It's new and quite a bit stiff. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install the nut, just a couple threads, and I'm going to gently tap tap this. And go ahead and line that up. Pop that up into place and get the nut started. Go ahead and tighten down the nut. I'm going to torque this at 25 foot-pounds. You want to go ahead and line up the notch on the castle nut with the hole in the ball joint, put our cotter pin through. If the hole doesn't line up with the notch, simply tighten the nut in small increments until the next notch lines up, then install the cotter pin. Now the nut is just beyond the hole in the ball joint, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten this just a little bit. And continue to do so so you can get that to line up. There we go, feed that through. Bend over the tab. I'm going to cut off the excess. You want to tighten down the jam nut. Using a 21mm wrench for this. You want to make sure this is pretty tight. And once you tighten that down, I like to make sure that our outer tie rod end is level. So I'm simply going to use a pair of pliers here. And just give this a little twist just to level this out. At this point here, you want to go ahead and install your wheel and bring the vehicle down to get an alignment. That'll help to prevent premature tire wear. Go ahead and take your wheel. Line that up. Let's go ahead and get the lug nuts all started by hand first. Once you have them all started, go ahead and snug them down. Go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Now installing your center cap, you want to make sure that the notch here lines up with the valve stem. Pop it on and you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.